Happy Earth Day, Connor.
Happy Earth Day. Thanks for
Welcome
having me
to
today.
Designing Healthy Environments. I feel so lucky to spend Earth Day like this with you.
Yeah, me too. Me too. It's been a while since we've been able to catch up, so this is exciting. I think it's a really great topic for Earth Day as well. So we kind of,
Yes.
think about and reflect on, being on Earth and, how we can help make the planet a little better. So this is great.
Yes. Before we get started, I'd like to let listeners know on who you are, your experience, and how you have been contributing to designing healthier buildings. So, a brief bio that I have here from you is that you have over 13 years of experience, although it seems like a lot more with everything that you contribute. You provide leadership in the development of energy efficient and sustainable buildings. Your approach focuses on engagement of stakeholders and integration of technical strategies to achieve high performance outcomes. Passionate about combining your deep knowledge of building design and utility programs, Connor works to develop innovative processes and collaborative partnerships that advance measurable impacts. Where am I? In energy equality and occupant well-being. So, I mean, you do a lot, and I really enjoyed working with you. That's how we met, right? We met how long ago now?
Oh, that was probably, so I've been with Slipstream for 7 years, and I think it was early on. So at least 5, maybe 6 years
5 years.
Yeah.
5 years. And you know, just having you guys a part of this project, it was for a CPS Annex project. The value that you guys brought to it, I mean, I want to say you guys helped save that project, with the
Thank you.
modeling and following the energy efficiency. And I think you guys really pushed our team, you and Brian.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was a new experience for us. It was, our first CPS project. So there was certainly some learnings there. And then, we really fell back to the core things we try to do, and that's to, demystify building systems and have a lot of transparency around how we're putting together maybe some analytics or data-driven elements of design, and just putting it out there for the team and kind of stepping through what we think that means, and how to integrate that into the design. So yeah, I think it was a really great project in the end. And I'm glad we could come on and help out. We still do some consulting work at Slipstream as well. But we're a pretty big organization now. We've grown considerably from the time that we first worked together. I think we were maybe 25 or 30 people, and through a merger with the Wisconsin Energy Conservation Corp. We're headquartered out of Madison, but we have our office in Chicago. We're now up to, I think it's about 160 people. So it's really exciting. We've also refreshed our mission a little bit, simplified it, but also, I think expanded it in a lot of ways. So our mission now is simple as accelerating climate solutions for everyone. And there are certainly aspects to healthier buildings within that. And how we go about doing that includes, research of new technologies, monitoring indoor air quality in buildings. We put together pilots and programs to help scale solutions. We have an education group, including folks who are out there trying to teach people about becoming healthy homes raters. And then we also provide financing for replacing existing technology or existing equipment through things like PACE and OnBuild. So
Wow.
A lot's changed.
A
Yeah.
lot has changed in the
It's
last 5 years. And today we're here to talk about specifically on multifamily homes, best practices for healthy systems. And, with us working from home now more than a year, this is an absolute important topic to talk about because COVID has put this renewed focus on us, on our health, on our indoor air quality of our buildings. um how has that impacted you and in the work that you've done?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think, I'll start back maybe at way back at the beginning of my career, right? So we've always
Okay.
said 13 years, so 2007. And what I feel like I've heard from the old guard, if you will, in the green building movement is that we were in like that second wave of LEED buildings. And so they
Okay.
did all this great work, getting the early adopters on board and really helping lay the foundation to normalize LEED. And what that brought with it was a normalization of healthier materials for buildings. Now, kind of jumping ahead a little bit, maybe we're in the third or fourth wave. I don't really know, but
Fourth or
there's,
fifth.
yeah, fourth
Yeah.
or fifth, right? There's kind of this focus one on carbon, which is great, and I think there's a lot of health considerations that link back to um, carbon and utility power generation and things like that. But then there's also this renewed focus or additional focus around health with elements of LEED, elements of well buildings, and things like that.
Mhm.
But what I think has been lagging, but has been now like very much in the back of everybody's mind is how we're ventilating our buildings, and that's pretty exciting to me. I think some real change can happen because well, the technology has been around since I started. I don't think it's been widely adopted to have really high quality ventilation systems in our buildings, especially in the residential sector. And we can get into some of the details of how it's always been done really, and what are some of the things we can improve upon.
Yeah, I mean, I like the fact that you put it out there in waves because we are in waves. And back even further, it started with the sick bill syndrome that was,
Mm,
right? Because a lot of people were getting sick and asthma and headaches. And so people started, what's going on, right? Indoor air quality and ventilation because we want.
yeah, and I'm getting a little audio lag, so I'm gonna jump in. Can you hear me okay? I'm going to pause just for a second because I've got some lag.
There
Can
you
you?
are.
There I am. Okay, great. All right.
We're just getting into the thick of things. Where did I
That's
leave
right. I
off?
froze. So
Where
you
did
were talking about sick building syndrome a little bit, and I think that's really important to bring up. And um, I feel like the industry has done some things to counteract that, but a lot of it came from the desire to drive energy efficiency within our homes, providing additional air sealing, but not really doing things to change the way that we would ventilate our homes, right? So we seal up our environment. It's going to start to trap pollutants, trap moisture, lead to potential mold growth issues, and really most people's homes are not actively ventilated or mechanically ventilated. You really just have a bathroom fan, and if you're lucky, in some instances, uh, a kitchen fan that exhausts to the outside. So if you think
Mhm.
about what was going on at that time, and everybody's homes being sealed up. No one really used to, opening your windows to bring in that fresh air on a regular basis. It was essentially trapping all the things that we don't want in our air.
Right.
And so I think there's certainly some things that we've learned from that. We're doing air sealing and upgrades to ventilation systems at the same time now.
Mhm.
And we're starting to actually track and better understand what we don't want in our air. Um, Really, a lot of the means and methods for ventilating our buildings have just kind of been built on top of each other each year or each cycle, saying, well, this worked in the past. It doesn't seem stuffy in here. But it's not really that data driven, if you
Yeah,
will.
I'm glad that you brought up, like, now we're tracking what we don't want, right? Because if we go back to this sick building syndrome, we knew what kind of, reactions we were having and working in these buildings or homes, wherever. And we found out that it was something called VOCs, right? Well, what is
Right, right.
VOCs? Not just and then VOCs and the ventilation and air quality, but we also have CO2s, right? Can you talk a little bit about that and how, like, you guys track these particulates, and what are the measures that we can do to plan ahead?
Yeah, that's a good thing to jump into. So maybe what I'll start off with
Mhm.
is, before I jump into kind of the deep dive on the particulate matter and things like that. What's kind of what constitutes a healthy home? And
Okay.
um, the Building Performance Institute, who we partner with to provide that healthy home rater training, has 8 things, and they're all really common sense things, but they're worth bringing up. And so a healthy home is going to be a clean home. It's going to be a dry home. It's going to be pest free. It's going
Mm.
to be contaminant free. We talked a little bit about VOCs. It's going to be safe, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And so ventilation ties with all 8 of those, right? And when we're thinking about ventilation and really trying to test out, well, are we getting effective ventilation? How well is it doing? It's really good to be able to measure things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing that I think a lot of folks will be familiar with, right, is CO2, right? And that's something we've been measuring in our commercial buildings for a long time. We've been controlling ventilation systems based on CO2. And in a lot of ways, it's a good proxy for the overall quality or freshness of our air. So, we're generating CO2 right now in our rooms. If we don't have good ventilation, that CO2 level is going to rise.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually rises too, but back when we were in the office, we had a conference room that wasn't getting enough ventilation. And we would notice when we're sitting in there, like 5, 6 people, even within a half hour, we're like, oh, it's stuffy in here. We had the ability to open a window, which was great.
Mm.
Um, but what we did one day, and we started doing for many of our meetings, is we would bring in some of our air quality monitoring equipment, and we would set that up in that conference room. And in under 20 minutes with 6 people, the CO2 levels would rise to like 1,800, 2,000 parts per million.
Mm.
And that translates to where you
Okay.
start getting some cognitive decline. So you're not making as good of decisions, you're
You
feeling sleepy.
start spacing
Um,
out.
yeah, yeah. So that's really important, in our own homes, but also in like office classroom settings and things like that.
Schools, yeah, all of that.
We're decisions are being made. So
I'm back again. This is the world we
okay,
live in, right? Zoom and
this is the
freeze.
world we live in.
And we
Yes.
just hope that we don't freeze in like this super odd position. I think that's the biggest worry. But I mean, we live in the cloud. Thank you for your patience on that. But that's how we live right now. That's how we communicate. And I think I may continue to freeze back and forth, but I think I did it again.
All right.
Peekaboo.
Well, it wasn't too awkward of a pose, so that's good.
Okay. Okay. But here I am like dying to hear what you have to say. We're talking about ventilation.
That's right. That's right. Let's talk a little bit about one of the other factors. I think it's maybe a newer factor for some people perhaps, and that's PM 2.5. That's another thing that we measure. It stands for particulate matter 2.5, or less than about 2.5 microns. So it's very, very small. And it's maybe talked about more in relation to the outdoor air quality, but it's essentially the small particulates that come from combustion. So on the outdoor side, right, it's from our smokestacks, it's from our cars. On the indoor side of things, it's from maybe smoking inside or cooking, and it has really big impacts on our respiratory health.
Mm,
And so it's important as we're considering indoor air quality to think about, well, what is the air coming into our buildings from the outside, and what are we kind of producing
producing.
on the inside.
Mm,
So if you live close to the Kennedy or something like that, it's probably not a good idea to be opening up your windows or having to rely on your windows to ventilate. All right. And so as designers, we should really be thinking about location and context of outdoor air quality in how we design our systems for
yeah.
filtering out some of those things.
So, I mean, what if you don't have a choice to where you live and you have to live next to the Kennedy? Like,
Right, right.
what can we do as designers to enhance the air quality in that case?
Yeah, the biggest thing, well, I'd say two. One is in new construction or retrofits, finding opportunities for air sealing. Our existing buildings are very, very leaky. That's actually how most buildings get ventilated if there's no mechanical ventilation. It's just through the cracks in the walls, right? And if we seal that up, we're stopping those outdoor pollutants from coming in. But now we have to find ways to bring in fresh air. And so the conventional way of bringing in fresh air into our buildings is to pull it in through exhaust fans in our bathrooms and maybe in our kitchen. That type of system, though, if you've sealed up the air or sealed up the walls, there's less cracks for that air to go through. So we have to bring in outside air from somewhere else. And in this case, if we're trying to limit or improve the quality of outdoor air coming in, we want to filter that air. So now we have to think about, well, what kind of mechanical systems can we do? And it's pretty common, Chicagoland area, for buildings to have what's called a dedicated outdoor air system or a makeup air system, and that basically blows ventilation air into a double loaded corridor. So,
Mm-hmm.
units on each side, that corridor becomes pressurized. And then in Chicago, we allow the air to come through the undercut of the door and then into the
Okay.
unit and then exhaust it out of that bathroom fan or an open window or something like that.
Okay.
There are a lot of places that don't allow that process. And they cite, potential fire hazards or concerns with smoke moving between units and things like that. So some places, and really what I think would be best practice, would not to be to just pressurize that corridor, but instead duct that air directly into each of the units. And
Mm-hmm.
so that way, it's much easier to control. How much air is coming into the unit and then how much air goes out of the unit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in the more conventional sense, someone opens up their window in a mid-rise or especially high-rise building, that throws off all of the pressure in that corridor, and you might start pulling air from other people's units, depending on which way the wind is blowing.
Mm-hmm.
So it can be maybe not the most ideal system. So that compartmentalization of individual units is probably best practice. And then you're able to have, a filtration system as part of that makeup air unit that's filtering out that particulate matter and really giving you high quality ventilation air coming into the unit.
Mm-hmm. So you need, and could also talk about the or the filtration in each unit, right? Like the MERV filters, right?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're thinking about filtration and improving air quality, the magic number, if you will, for an air filter's MERV rating, or I don't know what the acronym stands for, but it's really the efficiency or how well that filter can.
Minimum energy rating value.
That's pretty good. I think we're close. Um, so that's really just how well it can filter out really fine particles. And so MERV 13 is the magic number in a lot of senses. It covers, I think it's about 80 to 90% of the PM 2.5 particulates.
Okay.
And so that's kind of as small as you'd be going until you get to like a HEPA filtration type system without having so much of a pressure drop or so much energy to force air through that filter that it
Mm-hmm.
becomes a big issue.
Mm-hmm.
So you can do MERV filters in commercial size buildings as well as a residential furnace filter or something
And
like
make
that.
sure we replace them, right? Because if we could
Ye-
have the highest MERV value, but if we're not replacing them, then that's another problem.
Absolutely. And so it's either seasonal, right? You do your kind
Mm-hmm.
of spring cleaning. It's probably a good time to switch out your filter. So every time you change from either kind of cooling to heating or heating to cooling, replacing your filter is a good idea. So that's a couple times a year. On the residential side,
Mm-hmm.
there's actually some things that you can put into your filter. They're little furnace whistles. I learned about these a few years ago, and I thought they were kind of fun. And they are a little bit annoying for a good reason. So basically, it clips into your furnace filter. The air blows over it, doesn't make a sound until that filter becomes clogged up, and then the air wants to go through the whistle, and it starts making a noise, letting you know it's time to change the filter. So
Mm.
if you do that, yeah, I recommend having a backup filter ready to go because you don't want to listen to
Yeah.
that.
It's
Yeah.
good just to buy them for all seasons. Just have them there, not run out and I'm like, ooh, looking for that filter on the day of.
Right.
I wanted to ask you to talk a little bit about ASHRAE 62.2, for
Mm,
ventilation, and where can we as the building industry, where are areas we can push the envelope in, with ventilation? Where are we at, and how can we
Yeah.
push the envelope here?
So I mentioned a little bit about what we can do in Chicago, right? The
Mm-hmm.
ventilation code has been the Chicago ventilation code for a long time. And I know that the city is looking at or considering switching over to more of a national code basis. And ASHRAE 62.2 is a really good starting point. There's been multiple iterations of
Mm-hmm.
that ventilation standard. So 62.1 is for commercial buildings, like offices, things like that. And then everything residential is 62.2.
Mm-hmm.
And so that standard had a major update in its 2016 version. It's now on to 2019 and will be probably another 3-year cycle to 2022. And in the 2016 update, two major things happened. One is it required kitchen exhaust in residential units, which is really important.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not able to vent out everything that's kind of coming off of your oven when you're cooking, maybe you're burning gas there, you want to be able to vent out that PM 2.5 and the CO2 and CO that's coming from your combustion oven. I don't know about your house, but my house, there's constant cleaning going on in the kitchen, right? So, part for the kitchen is really important from ASHRAE 62.2. And then the other part that is important is that they've written in some things to get more constant ventilation.
Mm.
So most pre 2015 version of that standard, and even in city of Chicago, you can rely on windows for your main source of ventilation or on your bathroom fan exhaust. And some of the studies that we've done show that people aren't always turning on their bathroom fan on a regular basis. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're not turning that fan on, that means there's nothing besides the wind and stack effect to push new ventilation air into your unit or
I
your
have to
home.
thank my daughter for that. She always turns on the fans and leaves them on
That's
in the
that's good.
bathrooms.
That's really good. So one thing that you can do, designing and thinking about these spaces that maybe you're going above and beyond the code minimum, right?
Okay.
Is to put in a bathroom fan that has a continuous background exhaust. So a low CFM, a low flow that's always moving air through the units.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't use a lot of energy, and it's really no to low cost type measure that has a big impact. And that that fan you can have set up in smaller multifamily buildings to have just a simple occupancy sensor built in. So someone walks into the room, that fan turns on at a higher rate. It helps exhaust the moisture out of that space. They leave, it goes back to that lower level. I think that's one of the best practices that you can do. In larger commercial buildings, there are several different design features that can have similar operation. It's a little bit more complicated because you have to move air through, a very tall building, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
But similarly, that minimum background exhaust, I think, is quite important. 2016 essentially requires that jurisdictions that have adopted that, because it is so different from standard practice, but at the same time, I think it's quite important. So I think California is maybe leading the way on kind of those types of requirements. Or if you look to some of the other kind of standards out there, like Enterprise Green Communities, which is a really great holistic standard set up for the affordable housing market. They're starting to reference ASHRAE.
Yeah, and when you talk about California and the West Coast, I always think they're ahead because time is of the essence, and it's not until time is of the essence that people are going to be like, oh crap, we need to do something, right? We really need to do something, but we're talking about doing things right now before it gets into that critical moment. But yeah, it's interesting to see the trends, in other parts of the country.
Yeah, what is Chicago going to be the next leader on, right? I think we were holding some really great trends for a while. I think we still have some.
Yeah.
But green roofs, right? That was a mandated thing, but also I think it's really a smart and good idea, as well as the adoption of LEED, right? We have the largest square footage of LEED projects out of any major cities. So those types of things, like what's kind of next on that horizon. And I
Carbon-free Chicago.
Carbon-free Chicago. I think that is an excellent idea.
Yeah.
And I think there's some things that we can try to push as the design community here for ventilation as well. I think we can kind of normalize this idea of trying to have better ventilation in our buildings and really thinking about how we're bringing air in and how we're bringing air out.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're in a good place to be able to be innovative, and we have to be advocates, nonstop advocates for this type of work, and where we have to go to appointed leadership and say, can we get your support? And this is why. And that's pretty much part of our role too, is to push that envelope as much as we can. And we're lucky to have you here in the Midwest. I know you left Chicago, but I know that you're back whenever, I guess we need you.
Yes, I'm not very far away. I'm just to the north, and kind of back in my home state now. But I visit a lot, and I will continue to visit as things get a little better with the pandemic. And one thing that I think the pandemic has done, I think maybe there are some positives that could come out of this if we make them positive, right? Is it started to create more conversation around health in our buildings.
Yes.
And I think clients are asking, and will make it kind of a normal thing to ask about, well, how is this space being ventilated? And how is this space healthy or healthier? I think one of the things that I've kind of in some way not necessarily struggled with, but have tried to focus on, is this idea that we can make spaces healthier, but where the industry is at and where the research is at, in some ways, we still don't know exactly what healthy means, right? That the healthy at the end of the day, but we know we can make these things better.
Healthier, right? I mean, and that's why, APMonarch exists. We founded it on a mission to design healthier environments. And that I'm so glad that you brought that up. And yeah, people are asking, how do I make my space healthier? And COVID made it a matter of, it's a time of, it's now. We need to figure this out now, because now I'm working from home. And you know what? I like working from home. I don't know if I want to go back to the office. But if I do go back to the office, how healthy am I being there? I need to, I want that distance, or just, the health factor is huge. And I'm glad that, it's finally at the forefront, for others. And we're ready to give them solutions. So Connor, let me ask you one other thing. Well, two other things.
Sure.
Being Earth Day, and again, I feel so lucky to spend, part of this with you and talking about this. What are you doing for Earth Day? Anything special?
Oh, so today I need to find some ways to get outside, right? I've been trying to get outside and getting out to nature centers and helping out. And I don't know if I'm going to have a day of volunteering or not at the end. Most likely, I'm going to try to find ways to be more grateful just about the
Mm-hmm.
outdoors and what I get to do every day for my career and trying to find ways to make Earth a little bit better. It's a little different Earth Day for me than years past,
Okay.
um, where it was a lot more engagement and interaction. But I'm so happy that I at least get to talk to you about this. So
Yeah. No,
yeah.
like I said earlier, once that Illinois Green Boat Cruise comes back, you're my drinking buddy, Connor. I'm like, when I found out that you left, I was like, okay, who's left?
Who's gonna hang out? Well, I will be around to hang out for that. It's one of my
Okay.
favorite events of the year,
Yeah.
and for other things certainly. And so
Great.
I think
Yay.
as we get more comfortable, right, coming
Yeah.
back, as
Mhm.
as 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 things start to find that new normal and that level of comfort, I think those types of events will come back
I
and
just thought of an idea. We need like watches to measure our PM 2.5, like beep, beep,
oh,
beep, beep,
that's yeah, I think that's a good idea.
or phones. It's an app on a phone, really.
There is really good kind of consumer grade monitoring equipment out there, and
Mhm.
really driven by in the United States. I don't think it's really that much in people's mind, like air quality. But if you go to other countries where the pollution is much worse, people are constantly thinking about air quality and looking at air quality alerts, like what's it like outside, how bad is that smog today. And there's a huge market for kind of consumer grade PM 2.5 monitoring or VOC monitoring, things like that. So
Mm.
um, I recommend going out and getting one, putting it in
Yeah.
your house, and just kind of seeing, like, how does my air quality change throughout the day? Um, what's the VOC count after I got done cleaning? Like, how good are
Mm.
my cleaners? Do I need to switch something out? I think those are little things that can help make each of us a little bit more aware
Give
of
us a
of what's
peace
going
of
on when we,
mind. And yeah, I mean, especially for families that have people with asthma, those kind of conditions. I think that's a great idea. Why not monitor it and then change behaviors a little bit for the benefit of your health? So,
right, do
mhm,
a little pre and post, research project, and
mhm.
monitor it for a couple weeks, and then go buy a new filter, right? And see how,
Hey, I think that's your TikTok video. I'm gonna go ahead. TikTok PM 2.5 with Connor.
that's right. Let's do it.
All right, Connor. Well, thank you again for being here. I hope that you will join me again on designing healthy environments, and it's always a pleasure talking to you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful Earth Day. Thank
You
you,
too.
everybody. Bye.
Bye.